Before Russia was an empire, it was a riddle wrapped in snow, sealed by silence and ruled by shadows. A vast frozen expanse stretching from the Baltic to the Pacific, ignored by Europe, feared by its neighbors, and shackled by centuries of tradition that valued piety over progress, obedience over innovation, and beards over books. Then, like a thunderclap in a winter storm, he arrived, tall as a cathedral spire, fierce as a bear in rut, and possessed by a vision so radical it would tear his nation apart, only to rebuild it from the ashes of its own ignorance. His name? Peter Alexeyevich Romanov, but history would call him Peter the Great, not because he was kind, not because he was gentle, but because he was colossal. And what you're about to witness is not just the story of a king. It's the birth of a superpower, carved with an axe, baptized in blood, and launched onto the world stage with cannons blazing and sails unfurled. Born on May 30th, 1672, in the wooden chambers of the Kremlin, Peter entered a Russia drowning in ritual. His father, Tsar Alexei, had ruled with cautious reform, but after his death in 1676, the realm plunged into chaos. Peter was only 4. Power fell into the hands of his half-sister, Sofia Alexeyevna, a woman of iron will and sharper intellect, who ruled as regent while Peter and his frail half-brother Ivan were kept as royal ornaments in the village of Preobrazhenskoye, far from the intrigues of Moscow. There, while courtiers schemed and Streltsy, the elite musketeers, marched through Red Square with banners of rebellion, young Peter played soldier. Not with toy drums or wooden swords, but with real boys, real drills, and real ambition. He formed his own toy army, which soon became the nucleus of a new military force, one loyal only to him. By age 10, he was drilling regiments. By 12, he was dismantling clocks, studying maps, and questioning why Russia lagged behind the glittering courts of Amsterdam and London. While other princes recited psalms, Peter dissected frogs, built boats, and dreamed of oceans. But dreams in 17th century Russia were dangerous. In 1689, Sophia, sensing her grip slipping, tried to eliminate him. She rallied the Streltsy, whispering that Peter planned to strip them of privilege. But Peter, now 17 and towering over most men at 6 feet 8 inches, fled to the Trinity Monastery, not to pray but to gather allies. Nobles, foreign officers, and even former enemies flocked to his banner. Within weeks, Sophia's coup collapsed. She was forced into a convent, her face shaved, her voice silenced forever. Peter didn't kill her. He simply erased her. And with that act, a pattern emerged. Peter would not tolerate obstacles. Not from family, not from faith, not from fate itself. Yet even after seizing power, Peter did not rule alone. Officially, he shared the throne with his half-brother Ivan Fourm, a sickly, mentally impaired man who spent his days carving religious icons. But Ivan was a figurehead. Real power lay with Peter, though for years he seemed content to let others manage day-to-day affairs while he indulged his obsessions, shipbuilding, artillery, and Western technology. He moved his court to Preobrazhenskoye, then to a muddy patch near the Yauza River, what would become the nucleus of a new Russia. There, surrounded by Dutch engineers, Scottish gunners, and German craftsmen, Peter learned carpentry, dentistry, and navigation. He worked in shipyards with his own hands, blistering his palms alongside common laborers. He drank with foreigners, laughed in taverns, and scandalized Muscovite society by refusing to wear traditional robes or grow a beard, symbols of orthodox piety. To Peter, the beard was not holiness, it was backwardness, and backwardness was treason. In 1697, at age 25, Peter did the unthinkable. He left Russia, not as a czar in a gilded carriage, but as Peter Mikhailov, a humble carpenter traveling incognito with the so-called Grand Embassy, a diplomatic mission of 250 men sent to study Europe's secrets. For 18 months, he wandered through Prussia, the Dutch Republic, and England, working in the shipyards of Zeeandam and Deptford, attending scientific lectures, visiting hospitals, and collecting everything from telescopes to human skeletons. He met King William III of England, observed parliamentary debates, and marveled at the efficiency of Dutch canals. But more than knowledge, he absorbed an idea that a nation's strength lies not in divine right, but in rational order, technological mastery, and relentless discipline. When he returned in 1698, Russia would never be the same. Because while he was away, disaster struck. The Streltsy, resentful of Peter's foreign ways and rumored plans to disband them, rose in revolt. They marched on Moscow, demanding the restoration of old customs and the punishment of heretics. For weeks, the capital teetered on civil war. But Peter, upon hearing the news in Vienna, raced back across Europe at breakneck speed. He arrived not with mercy, but with vengeance. What followed was one of the most brutal purges in Russian history. Over 1,000 Streltsy were executed, some hanged, some broken on the wheel, others beheaded in public squares. Peter himself wielded the axe in several executions, his hands stained with the blood of men who once swore to protect the Tsar. Their bodies were left to rot as warnings. Their families were exiled. Their very name was erased from official records. It was a message written in gore. Russia would change or die trying. With internal threats crushed, Peter turned outward. His gaze fixed on the south, the Black Sea, controlled by the Ottoman Empire. But his first major war, the Azov campaigns of 1695-1696, taught him a bitter lesson. Russia had no navy. Without ships, he could not blockade the fortress of Azov. So he built one, on the spot. In months, using local timber and foreign expertise, he constructed a flotilla that trapped the Turks and forced their surrender. It was Russia's first naval victory. But Peter knew it wasn't enough. The Ottomans were wounded, not defeated. And Europe still saw Russia as a barbarian state, a land of fur-clad savages who worshipped icons and burned witches. To earn respect, he needed more than victories. He needed a revolution. Thus began the Petrine Reforms, a tidal wave of decrees that reshaped every fiber of Russian life. He abolished the Boyar Council, replacing it with a senate of loyal technocrats. He reorganized the army along Prussian lines, introducing conscription, uniforms, and brutal discipline. He taxed beards, literally charging men for the right to keep their facial hair, and mandated Western dress. He founded schools for navigation, engineering, and medicine. He ordered the first Russian newspaper, Vedomosti, printed in 1703. He simplified the alphabet, reformed the calendar, and even changed the way Russians celebrated New Year, from September 1 to January 1st, aligning with Europe. Every tradition was suspect, every custom was questioned, even the Orthodox Church, long the soul of Russia, was brought to heel. When Patriarch Adrian died in 1700, Peter refused to appoint a successor. Instead, he placed the church under state control through the Holy Synod, a bureaucratic body answerable to him alone. God in Peter's Russia served the state, not the other way around. But none of these changes came without cost. The people groaned under new taxes, forced labor, and cultural humiliation. Peasants fled to the forests, nobles plotted in whispers. And then, in 1700, Peter made his boldest move yet. He declared war on Sweden, the dominant power in Northern Europe. King Charles IX, just 18 and already a military prodigy, laughed at the notion of Muscovite peasants challenging his invincible legions. At the Battle of Narva, his laughter seemed justified. The Swedish army, though outnumbered 4-1, shattered the Russian forces in a single afternoon. Thousands of Russians died, cannons were abandoned, standards trampled in the mud. Europe rejoiced, Russia was finished. But Peter did not retreat. He retreated to rebuild. For 6 years, he drilled his army, forged new cannons, and studied Swedish tactics. He melted church bells into cannonballs. He sold royal jewels to buy gunpowder. He promoted men not by birth, but by merit, even elevating a former serf, Alexander Menshikov, to the highest ranks of command. And in 1703, in the middle of a swamp infested with mosquitoes and corpses, he laid the foundation of a city that would defy nature itself, Saint Petersburg. Built on marshland seized from Sweden, this window to the west rose from nothing, its palaces erected on piles driven into the Neva River, its streets laid out by Italian architects, its soul infused with European ambition. Workers died by the tens of thousands from disease, starvation, and exhaustion. Some called it a city of bones. Peter called it necessary. By 1709, he was ready. At the Battle of Poltava, on a sun-drenched Ukrainian plain, Peter faced Charles IV once more. This time, the Russians held their ground. Artillery roared. Infantry advanced in disciplined volleys. And when the Swedish charge broke against the Russian lines, the tide turned forever. Charles fled to Ottoman territory. His army was annihilated. Poltava wasn't just a victory, it was a declaration. Russia was no longer a regional power. It was a European empire. The war dragged on for another decade, but the outcome was sealed. By 1721, Sweden surrendered its Baltic territories in the Treaty of Neustadt. Russia gained Estonia, Livonia, Ingria, and Karelia. More importantly, Peter was proclaimed Imperator, Emperor of all Russia. The title was more than ceremonial. It signaled that Russia now stood equal to Austria, France, and Britain. To mark the occasion, Peter staged a grand procession through Saint Petersburg, foreign ambassadors bowing, cannons firing, and the Neva glittering under summer sun. Yet even in triumph, shadows gathered. His son, Alexei, raised in the old ways, soft-spoken, devout, had grown to despise his father's reforms. He called St. Petersburg a wilderness of stone. He whispered with disgruntled nobles. And in 1716, fearing arrest, he fled to Vienna, seeking refuge with the Habsburgs. Peter was devastated and enraged. He demanded Alexei's return, promising forgiveness. But when his son came back in 1718, Peter subjected him to interrogation, torture, and a show trial. Under duress, Alexei confessed to plotting against the throne. He was sentenced to death. Before the sentence could be carried out, he died in prison, likely beaten to death on his father's orders. The official cause: grief. The truth: patricide of the soul. Peter had sacrificed his own heir to secure his legacy. That night, it's said, he wept uncontrollably. But the next morning, he signed new decrees expanding the Navy, founding academies, and drafting plans for a new legal code. Grief, like beards, was a luxury Russia could not afford. As the 1720s dawned, Peter's health began to fail. Years of drinking, stress, and exposure to battlefields took their toll. Yet he worked tirelessly, designing bridges, inspecting factories, writing regulations for everything from street cleaning to funeral processions. He banned burials inside city limits. He mandated smallpox inoculation. He even drafted rules for how citizens should behave at dinner parties. Nothing was too trivial if it served the modernization of Russia. But beneath the surface, doubt crept in. Had he pushed too hard, too fast? In his final years, he grew melancholic, staring out at the Gulf of Finland, wondering if his creations would survive him. He had no clear successor. His second wife, Catherine, was strong-willed but untested. His grandchildren were infants. And the nobility, though cowed, still seethed with resentment. On January 28, 1725, after weeks of agony from a urinary tract infection that turned septic, Peter the Great died at the age of 52. His last words whispered through fevered lips were, "Let the will of God be done." But there was no will, no written succession plan, only chaos. As his body lay in state in the Winter Palace, factions formed in the corridors of power. Who would inherit the empire he forged in fire? The answer would determine whether Peter's revolution lived or crumbled into dust. And so ends the first chapter of a transformation so violent, so total, that it redefined not just a nation, but the balance of global power. But Peter's death was not the end. It was the beginning of a struggle, one that would test whether an empire built by one man's will could endure without him. Because in the frozen halls of Saint Petersburg, amidst mourning veils and whispered conspiracies, a new battle was about to begin. Not with cannons, but with crowns. Not on battlefields, but in bedrooms. And the stakes, nothing less than the soul of Russia itself. When Peter the Great drew his last breath in the icy dawn of 1725, Russia did not mourn a man, it mourned a force of nature. For over 4 decades, he had been earthquake, architect, and executioner rolled into one. He had dragged a medieval realm kicking and screaming into the modern age, reshaping its borders, its beliefs, and even its bones. But empires do not run on charisma alone. And as his massive body lay encased in a glass coffin beneath flickering candles, a terrifying question echoed through the marble halls of Saint Petersburg. Who dares wear the crown he forged? There was no heir apparent, no clear line of succession, only a vacuum. And in the shadow of autocracy, vacuums are never empty for long. They fill with ambition, betrayal, and blood. What followed was not a smooth transition of power, but a decade-long free-for-all, a royal roulette where the prize was an empire stretching from Poland to the Pacific, and the penalty for losing was exile, prison, or a bullet in the dark. This is the untold saga of the heirs of Peter the Great, a story of women who ruled as emperors, children crowned before they could read, and a dynasty that nearly tore itself apart trying to live up to a ghost. Peter's immediate successor was not a son, not a brother, not even a Romanov by blood, but his widow, Catherine I. Born Marta Skavronskaya, she was a Lithuanian peasant of obscure origins, possibly the daughter of a washerwoman or a serf. Captured during the Great Northern War, she became the mistress of a Swedish officer, then a Russian dragoon, before falling into the hands of Prince Menshikov, the cunning favorite who rose from pastry chef to prince. Recognizing her intelligence and charm, Menshikov presented her to Peter as a gift. What began as a dalliance became destiny. Catherine accompanied Peter on campaigns, nursed him through illness, and bore him 12 children, though only 2 daughters, Anna and Elizabeth, survived infancy. She was uneducated but shrewd, warm but resilient, and when Peter, in a shocking break from tradition, crowned her Empress consort in 1724, he signaled that merit, not lineage, would define Russia's future. So when Peter died, the elite were divided. The old boyars wanted Peter's grandson, the 11-year-old Peter Alexeyevich, son of the disgraced Tsarevich Alexei, installed as a puppet ruler. But the Guards regiments, the very soldiers Peter had trained and trusted, backed Catherine. Led by Menshikov and General Pyotr Tolstoy, they staged a swift coup. On the night of Peter's funeral, they marched to the palace, bayonets gleaming, and declared, "Catherine, Empress of all Russia." The boyars protested, but not for long. One by one, they knelt. On May 7, 1725, Catherine I was crowned. Russia had its first female ruler. And though she reigned for just 2 years, her ascension set a precedent that would echo for decades. In Peter's Russia, power belonged to those who could seize it and hold it. Catherine governed little. Real authority rested with the Supreme Privy Council, dominated by Menshikov, who now ruled as de facto dictator. He moved the court back to Moscow, married his daughter to the young Peter Alexeyevich, and began consolidating wealth with brazen greed. But his arrogance blinded him. When Catherine died in 1727, likely from tuberculosis exacerbated by years of heavy drinking, the boyars struck back. They convinced the teenage Peter II that Menshikov was plotting to poison him. In a single night, the prince who had risen from rags was stripped of titles, fortune, and dignity. He and his family were exiled to Siberia, where he died in poverty, forgotten by the empire he helped build. Peter II, now emperor at 12, was placed under the control of the Dolgorukov family, old nobles determined to undo Peter the Great's legacy. They moved the capital back to Moscow, canceled naval projects, and reinstated traditional customs. For a moment, it seemed the Petrine Revolution was reversing. But fate had other plans. In 1730, just as Peter II prepared to marry and produce an heir, he contracted smallpox. He died on the very day of his wedding, aged 15. With no direct male descendant of Peter the Great left alive, the Romanov male line went extinct. The throne now passed to the daughters of Ivan Fifos, Peter's half-brother and co-Tsar. The eldest, Anna Ivanovna, Duchess of Courland, was summoned from her Baltic duchy. But the Supreme Privy Council, wary of another autocrat, offered her the crown only if she signed the conditions, a document that would turn Russia into a constitutional monarchy, stripping the sovereign of absolute power. Anna, a stern, childless woman with a taste for hunting and German discipline, pretended to agree. She signed the conditions in January 1730. But within weeks, she tore them up. Rallying the Guards and the common people, who feared noble oligarchy more than imperial tyranny, she declared herself absolute empress. The conspirators were arrested, exiled, or executed. Russia's brief flirtation with limited monarchy ended before it began. Anna's reign, 1730 to 1740, was marked by German dominance, military expansion, and brutal repression. Her favorite, Ernst Johann von Biron, a Baltic German of low birth, ruled as her shadow, filling offices with fellow Germans and living in obscene luxury. Russians resented the German yoke. Secret police hunted dissenters. Torture returned to the dungeons. Yet Anna also continued Peter's foreign policy. She waged war against Persia, regained lost territories in the Caucasus, and intervened in Polish and Austrian succession crises to assert Russian influence. Domestically, she founded the Cadet Corps to train noble youth in Western sciences and military arts. She expanded the secret police, and she maintained Saint Petersburg as the capital, refusing to let Moscow reclaim its old glory. Though harsh, she preserved Peter's core vision: Russia as a centralized, militarized European power. When Anna died childless in 1740, she named her grandnephew, the 2-month-old Ivan Sik, as heir. His mother, Anna Leopoldovna, became regent. But the infant emperor's reign lasted barely a year. Elizabeth Petrovna, Peter the Great's youngest surviving daughter, watched from the sidelines, biding her time. Beautiful, charismatic, and deeply aware of her father's legacy, Elizabeth had spent years in relative obscurity, hosting lavish parties and avoiding politics. But she never forgot her birthright. On the night of November 25th, 1741, she donned a soldier's uniform, marched to the barracks of the Preobrazhensky Regiment, the very unit her father had founded, and cried, "Do you want to serve your true sovereign?" The soldiers roared in approval. They stormed the Winter Palace, arrested the infant Ivan and his family, and proclaimed Elizabeth Empress. Her coup was bloodless, but her rule was not lenient. Ivan VI and his family were imprisoned in remote fortresses, forbidden to speak, read, or even see sunlight. Guards were ordered to shoot them if anyone attempted rescue. Elizabeth, meanwhile, revived Peter's dream with fervor. She abolished the hated cabinet of ministers, restored the Senate, and eliminated internal tariffs to boost trade. She founded Moscow University in 1755, the first in Russia, declaring, "Russia must have its own Newtons and Lomonosovs." Indeed, she patronized Mikhail Lomonosov, the polymath who pioneered Russian science and literature. She banned the death penalty, though executions continued unofficially. She promoted the arts, commissioning grand Baroque palaces like the Winter Palace and Tsarskoye Selo. And she reasserted Russia's place in Europe, not through diplomacy, but through war. During the 7 Years' War, 1756-1763, Elizabeth allied with Austria and France against Prussia. Her generals, most notably Pyotr Saltykov, inflicted crushing defeats on Frederick the Great, even occupying Berlin in 1760. Russia stood on the brink of dismantling Prussia entirely. But in 1762, Elizabeth died suddenly after suffering a series of strokes. Her nephew, Peter III, grandson of Peter the Great through his mother Anna, ascended the throne. And with him, everything unraveled. Peter III was a disaster. Half German, raised in Holstein, he idolized Frederick the Great, the very man Russia was crushing. Within months, he withdrew from the war, returned all conquered Prussian territories, and signed a humiliating peace. He alienated the Orthodox Church by confiscating monastic lands. He mocked Russian customs, spoke poor Russian, and spent his days drilling toy soldiers and drinking excessively. The guards, nobility, and clergy turned against him. His own wife, Sophie of Anhalt-Zerbst, a German princess who had converted to Orthodoxy and taken the name Catherine, saw her chance. Cultivating allies among officers and prelates, she staged a coup in June 1762. Peter III was arrested, forced to abdicate, and murdered 8 days later, likely strangled by Alexei Orlov, one of Catherine's lovers. The official report claimed hemorrhoidal colic. Few believed it. Catherine II, later known as Catherine the Great, was now empress. And though she was not a Romanov by blood, she became Peter the Great's truest heir. She embraced his vision with even greater ambition. She expanded the empire further than he ever dreamed, partitioning Poland, conquering Crimea, and pushing into the Black Sea. She corresponded with Voltaire, Diderot, and other Enlightenment thinkers, styling herself as a philosopher empress. She reformed laws, promoted education, and encouraged industry. Yet her reign also exposed the central contradiction of Peter's legacy: modernization built on serfdom. While Saint Petersburg glittered, millions of peasants lived in bondage worse than before. When Yemelyan Pugachev led a massive Cossack and peasant revolt in 1773 to 1775, claiming to be Peter III returned from the dead, Catherine crushed it with merciless brutality, executing Pugachev by drawing and quartering. Still, she understood symbolism. She commissioned statues of Peter the Great, including Etienne Falconet's iconic bronze horseman, a monument depicting Peter astride a steed, trampling a serpent, gazing westward over the Neva. It became the eternal image of Russia's destiny: forward, upward, unstoppable. And when she died in 1796, the empire she inherited, a fragile experiment, had become a continental giant. But let us return to that cold January morning in 1725. Peter's body lay still, but his spirit did not. It lived in the canals of Saint Petersburg, in the drill commands of the army, in the printing presses of Vedomosti, in the beardless faces of bureaucrats rushing to meetings. His successors, Catherine I, Peter II, Anna, Elizabeth, Peter III, and Catherine the Great, were not mere rulers. They were custodians of a revolution. Some betrayed it, some perverted it, but none could ignore it. Because Peter had done more than build an empire. He had created an idea that Russia was not destined to be Europe's backward cousin, but its equal, and perhaps its master. And that idea did not die with him. It grew, it adapted, survived coups, plagues, and wars. It endured because Peter had embedded it not just in laws, but in the very identity of the state. Today, when you see Russia project power across continents, when you witness its blend of autocracy and ambition, when you hear its leaders speak of national greatness forged through sacrifice, you are seeing the legacy of a man who dared to remake a civilization with his bare hands. So the next time you walk past a map of Europe, pause at that vast stretch of land bridging east and west. Remember, it was not always an empire. It was once a wilderness of snow and superstition. And it became a colossus because one man refused to accept the world as it was, and had the will, the cruelty, and the vision to build it anew. If stories like this ignite your curiosity, if you believe history isn't just dates and dead kings, but a living drama of power, passion, and human will, then you belong here. This channel is dedicated to uncovering the hidden turning points, the forgotten rebels, and the towering figures who shaped our world in ways textbooks rarely tell. We dive deep, research relentlessly, and craft narratives that don't just inform, they transport. But we can't do it without you. Hit that subscribe button, ring the notification bell, and join a growing community of history lovers who demand more than surface-level summaries. Because the past isn't behind us. It's the key to understanding everything happening right now. And together, we'll keep unlocking its secrets, one epic story at a time.